Just going to take a few minutes to get our other councillors who are joining by Zoom online, and then we'll begin. Invite Councillor Karen Barker to open up our meeting with the karakia.
Morena. Tutawa mai I runga, tutawa mai I raro, tutawa mai I roto, tutawa mai I waho. Ki e tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora ki te katoa. Haumi e, hui e, tahe ki e.
Thank you very much, Councillor Karen Barker. I call for apologies. I do have apologies from Councillor Kiriopa, and also Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Waru will be joining us by Zoom, but may need to leave for early departure. May I please have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Kaifong, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour to receive the apologies, please say aye. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? There appear to be none. Any urgent items not on the agenda? Yes, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Worship, and through you, may I say congratulations and welcome back after the birth of Bubby. Great to have you back. I'd like to raise, please, at the Lakes Community Board meeting last week, it was raised with it being a public forum. It was raised in regards a ministerial decision in withdrawing $10 million from a proposed scheme. And I don't ask for a decision today, but I was wondering if, given the importance of such a large amount and the fact that we're discussing annual plan, whether we could have a verbal report and also a verbal report on the implications financially. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Brien. That certainly would be of public interest. Just next week, we do have the Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting, which would be the most appropriate to give an update at that stage. If you don't mind waiting until then, we do intend to provide an update there.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to wait. However, I would just indicate that the annual plan, you know, this would be a significant financial impact, and personally, I would like to have seen this addressed prior to our decision making, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor O'Brien. That is a very relevant point. It has been unfortunate, the decision of Minister Parker. However, that does not affect this financial year and the annual plan. So that will have to be a long-term plan discussion. We anticipate that it will be a number of years before that funding is required if we're no longer able to receive the $10 million that was anticipated before the Minister made a decision that would no longer receive it despite commitments. So yeah, we'll provide more of an update, but I do reassure councillors that it doesn't impact this annual plan. Thank you for raising it. Were there any other urgent items? There appear to be none, so we'll move on to our council agenda. We have received a public petition called Keep Our Rates Low. I would like to advise that we've received the petition from Councillor Patterson, thank you, and this is opposing the proposed rates increase and requesting that the Chief Executive find savings to allow the residential urban rate for the 2023-24 financial year to be set below 8% or lower. So just for councillors' information, Councillor Patterson submitted his petition under section 17.3, petition submitted by member, the standing orders, which requires that the confine themselves to only presenting petition, state, and also the number of signatures. Patterson requested that 2 members of the public speak themselves, which I'm happy to accept. So on this occasion, we have some leeway to allow that, and we will accept the petition under the section 17.2, petition submitted by petitioner. That sounds a little bit complicated, but what that does is allow the petitioners to be able to speak. So in this case, we have Steve Gardiner and also Chanel Renata, and I'd like to now invite them to the table to speak to the petition and also inform them. I'm sure we've given them an update, but we have 5 minutes for the presentation. So you're welcome to take up that full 5 minutes however way you wish to with both of you. So we warmly welcome Steve and also Chanel to the table, and we thank you for being here this morning. And I will just give you a short warning at maybe 30 seconds. However, the time is now yours. Welcome.
Good morning, Your Worship. Councillors, thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak in support of the petition to keep our rates low. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Patterson for organising the petition. We know that he would like to be here next to us, like many of you, but the rules unfortunately don't allow that. I've lived in Rotorua most of my life. I've been in business for over 40 years, and I know Rotorua isn't a wealthy town. Sure, we do well out of tourism and forestry, but you only have to drive around the suburbs to see the reality of how many of our people live. I get that we have to pay rates. It's how council earn the money to pay our services, the water, the roads, the waste. I get that. I also know the cost of delivering has gone up. But council also has a responsibility for the people who live here. I'll say that again, actually. But council also has a responsibility for the people who live here, young, old, rich, poor, renters, and homeowners, all of us. I became involved in the petition when my daughter asked me if I would have it at the local gym, at my gym, and also take it to our church. We have a good cross-section of people in our membership, but the common theme I heard from those that signed the petition was, "We can't afford it. We can't afford it," I heard many times. Everyone knows these are tough times. The prices of everything have gone up. Food, petrol, power, insurance, rent, and now our rates are about to go up. People are being squeezed from all directions. So I ask you, councillors, please listen to the 586 people who signed this petition, people from all over our city. Hear them when they say, "We can't afford it." Thanks for listening. Now I'll pass you over to Chanel.
Morena koutou katoa. At university, we were to elect class representatives, but not through debates on politics or law. Ironic, given it was the first day of law school. The professor instead gave us, our potential class reps, the task of deciding what would they place aboard the Voyager, to send a message to the universe about who we are as human beings on Earth. There were the usual submissions: flora and fauna, pop culture icons, a dictionary. However, the person elected on that day asked one question: how many of you had to eat instant noodles today? Had to eat instant noodles today? Hands shot in the air everywhere. An overwhelming victory for what would be placed upon the Voyager. How does that question relate to this petition? Our younger generation could have expressed who we are to the wider universe in any way, shape, or form. The professor said there is no wrong answer, but the simple packet of noodles represents the harsh reality a lot of our people face today, the reality of food becoming less affordable, food which is not a want, it is a life necessity. Yes, there are people who can choose to eat noodles, but for many of us, it is no longer a choice. It has become a need to make money stretch further and further, and indeed, this is fast becoming a luxury meal for far too many people in our community. People already going without. Did our tūpuna envision a legacy of hard times for us? Is this the legacy we choose to hand down to our mokopuna as our elected officials? I ask you, what legacy do you choose for us, your people, your community? What legacy do you choose for us? Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa.
Kia ora. Thank you very much to both of you. We'd like to thank Steve and also Chanel for your heartfelt message this morning. We know that it comes certainly with the support of many people behind you as well. So we thank you for taking the time to present today. And we also thank the public for taking the time to be present in this very important meeting too. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we'll now move to our council agenda today. We have the confirmation of minutes first before we get underway. May I please have a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held on 31st of May 2023 be confirmed as true and correct record. Moved by Councillor Kai Fong, seconded by Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please say aye. And we also have... Thank you. We also have the minutes for the meeting held on the 7th and 8th of June. May I please have a mover and a seconder to confirm that these are true and correct record. Moved by Councillor Barker, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Now, we now move to our staff reports. The first one today is adopting our annual plan. We are on page 35 of our agenda. And may I please have a mover and a seconder to receive the report in the first instance. Adopt Annual Plan 2023-24 be received. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. All those in favour to receive the report, please say aye. Thank you. And I'd like to hand over to our DCE, Thomas Colley, to overview this report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Welcome back, and hopefully the last month has been very kind to you, and good morning, councillors. Just one more click on the presentation, please. This is the final step with regards to the annual plan process for 23-24. So just a quick reminder, this process has been going on now for a number of months. Started in early February with regards to forums, through to a draft annual plan that went out for consultation for a 4-week period, followed by hearings and deliberations around decisions around what the final plan looks like, and now on the 28th of June being the meeting to adopt. Underpinning the annual plan was the Council's strategic objectives, and in particular was around, during these difficult times, demonstrating financial prudence around debt rates and capex, measuring the priorities and delivering measurable priorities, particularly around the economy and infrastructure and housing, and that's around our work programs and obviously the underpinning capital work program for our community. Focus on essential services and looking at alternative revenue sources, and in particular looking at the balance of user pays and rates. And these were many of the discussions and proposals that we went out to the community with during the annual plan consultation. So where we started was 11.95, and that was obviously a reflection of the significant cost pressures that the organisation was facing, as well as regulatory pressures, and as well as the underpinning capital works program and the need to support that, in particular around the infrastructure space, wastewater treatment plant upgrades, water network extensions, etc. We refined that down to 7.2 through the total of about 45 proposals, and right before the deliberations we did reset some of the underpinning assumptions around our opening debt, where some of our revenues were and some of our costs, and we started at that point of 6.2 entering into the deliberations. The deliberations itself was on the back of a 4-week consultation period. It was a very high turnout with regards to the community voicing their views and opinions. There were almost 2,100 submissions received. We did have 2 days of hearings, and obviously you heard from 62 submitters in person. And then following that, you did spend 2 days with regards to deliberations and making decisions on each of those proposals. After that, where we landed was a rates increase of 8.8. And there was no substantial change to the overall debt position and capital works program than what we consulted on. The majority of the changes were service levels in the operating area, and those were the changes that resulted in the draft plan that is now in front of you. The rating impact, and I will leave this up on the screen a little bit longer for you to have a look at. What we saw was the changes that came through from the deliberations was a lift in the general rate. And so what we saw was a change in the rating distribution that we had at the time of consultation. And so as those proposals came back in, the general rate came back up, and so it did change the distribution. We consulted on the basis of not increasing the UAGC. And so the majority of the change fell on the capital value general rate portion. And so what we're seeing is that the distribution is predominantly within 1% or less than 1% within the average rates. And so it is quite a tight band. There are some anomalies that sit outside of that, but as a whole, there is a quite tight banding. With regards to our debt forecast, so we have reforecast out the remainder of our long-term plan debt. So the 2 yellow lines are where we are currently, and 2024 is where we project to be. So we're still comfortable within our debt profile, but you will see that debt cap line does come down in 2025, which will be year 1 of our LTP. And that's just a reflection of us removing all the capital subsidies tied to the museum project, which we've just left as the council contribution. And so that's the reason why that has changed so substantially in this presentation. But at the moment, we are comfortably within our debt cap, but in year 1 of the LTP, as we all know, you are wanting to look at what we do, how we do things, and how we fund things a bit more substantially. There'll be an opportunity to look at that and reset that going forward. With that, happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the report or the presentation? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Welcome back. Thank you for your report, Thomas. I note with interest that the spread from the lower CV to the upper CV when it comes to residential rates, the skew changed from previously, some of the previous years, even the one that was in the annual plan, where the bulk of the increase was on the people with the lowest valued homes. Whereas this time it's flipped around so that the people who have the lower CVs won't be paying as much as the people who have the higher CVs, which is probably the fair way. How did that come about?
Yeah, so it changed from that when we consulted it was different, and it was the opposite because the majority of the rates, the underlying rate increases of all the individual rates sat on fixed charges and so fixed components. And so therefore, as a property picks up a fixed charge and the fixed charge is a larger proportion of the total rates that it pays, it's getting a slightly higher increase. When the proposals came back in, all those changes fell on the general rate, that fell on capital value. And so therefore, the change, what we're seeing now is of our rate split, a larger portion is now sitting on the general rate on capital value, and so therefore properties with a higher capital value are picking up a slightly larger portion as a result. And so it's a makeup of how the composition of the underlying rates has changed from when we consulted to when we've finalised.
Thank you.
Any further questions? There appear to be none. This item has been debated very thoroughly. There was great discussion held on the 7th and the 8th of June as well. So perhaps if there is any discussion, I'd like to open up for discussion by moving the motion and asking for a seconder, seconded Councillor Kai Fong, that Council adopts the annual plan 2023-24 and notes the plan delivers on decisions made by Council following consultation and decision making. This item is now up for discussion or comments if there are any from councillors. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And what I'd like to do is actually introduce some rather sobering facts that have only been published in the last 4 weeks. So they might have made a difference if we'd had them earlier, but they've just been published. And I want to start with a whakatau that I found that I think would be rather appropriate for this, which is mā te whakaatu ka mohio. By discussion comes understanding. Mā te mohio ka marama. By understanding comes light. Mā te marama ka mātou, by light comes wisdom. Mā te mātou ka ora, by wisdom comes well-being. So that word well-being is one of the pillars of the Local Government Act and also a key part of this council's priorities. It's the driving factor behind the petition, why I got behind the idea of trying to keep our rates low. So I'd like to thank everybody who supported me over those 4 days and the 586 signatures. Thank you very much. Ngā mihi nui a koe. As the author Isaac Asimov once said, he made a great quote, "No sensible decision can be made any longer without taking into account not only where the world is as it is, but where it is going." So what is the world our people are living in right now? Just hear the facts that are rather scary. Fruit and vegetables, nearly 20% more expensive than they were a year ago. The latest Human Rights Measurement Initiative, it's an annual report that's just been released, states New Zealand sits just above Mexico as the second lowest ranked OECD country for the right to food. Scary stuff. Approximately 50% of our existing home loans are going to roll onto higher interest rates in the next 12 months. Those currently are on rates of 2 to 3% will be facing a floating home rate of around about 8.5%. I got my notification from ANZ the other day. The average repayment will be increasing by $500 a fortnight. House insurance premiums have risen by 20 to 30% due to those unfortunate and rather devastating weather events. Car insurance premiums have also climbed, I got my bill too, due to apparently rising crime. Now, our renters are also suffering. So TradeMe's just released their figures that show Auckland, Wellington and Bay of Plenty are now the most expensive regions to live as a renter. They all now have a median weekly rent of $600. $600. So rent makes up about a third of beneficiary household expenditure, and we know high rates lead to high rent. Families are having to make really tough decisions about what they're having to go without. New research from the 3 US universities, this just came out over the last week, housing insecurity as a child is linked to worse mental health in life. Here in New Zealand, a study showed at least half of our 12-year-olds, half, in rental accommodation have moved at least once after the time they were 8 years old. And then we have our older people on fixed incomes. Now, they're often at home, according to stats, sometimes with significant health and disability support needs. And those services are not always paid for by the government and have to be paid for by them privately. So that's the world our people are living in right now. So what about the world where it's going to be? We already know Aotearoa New Zealand is in recession right now. The world's other major economies, including Australia's, risk falling into recession as consecutive interest rate rises are failing to bring down inflation. We're facing an economic tsunami in the next 12 months. How then, in this cost of living crisis, can we, as kaitiaki of our community, not put the well-being of our people above everything else? Everything else. Under the previous council, Rotorua's average residential rates were higher than the national average. The borrowing costs were almost $100 higher per household than the national average. The staff costs per household were higher than the national average. You know, we were elected to bring about positive change, to make things better for our community, not to perpetuate the past. So I urge you to please put well-being of our people first. Mā mua ka kite a muri. Mā muri ka ora a mua. Those who lead give sight to those who follow. Those who follow give life to those who lead. Remember who put us here and the responsibility we have to care for all of our people. We have the right to live our lives with dignity. No one should have to choose between heating and eating. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any other comments or discussion? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and may I start by saying I fully support Councillor Patterson's comments there. I was going to start off on a similar vein, but as he's already done an excellent job, I think I'll step aside the cost of living issues, and I'll talk in a more general sense. If I could go back to, I remember reading when the Magna Carta was established, and one of the principles that came out was no taxation without representation. And I wonder who we didn't see represented during our submissions. You know, the people doing, mums and dads working 2 jobs each, maybe even another part-time one, just to try and make ends meet, to put food on the table for the kids, to make sure that the heating's on, maybe there's some firewood. Who wasn't represented? People on fixed incomes. People who didn't have the time or resources. And I wish that we could offer them some good news, but this weekend I believe the petrol subsidy, I think, is removed by the government. Public transport costs go up as well. How much more can these people take? If we're not careful, we're going to be pricing the middle class out of Rotorua. And I don't make that statement lightly. Rates of increases of 9%. How many people have had a pay rise that you've heard of 9%? So straight away, people are already onto a losing battle. Robin Hood used to steal from the rich and give to the poor. This council, for some reason, takes from the poorest and those most vulnerable, and we let the rich off the hook. And one of the saddest things that happened over the annual plan process, we had opportunities to look at equality along things like Airbnb, vacant land being used for land banking. We had an opportunity to face these, and for some reason we turned our back and took the easy way out. In a few days, over the next few weeks, we'll be talking as a council about community harm and community safety. Well, we all know some of the effects and pressures that financial pressure puts on family harm and family situations. So when we're talking about community safety, are we just talking about where tourists go? Or are we also going to face where the people of Rotorua actually live and the pressures and stresses that they're under? I'd like you all to think about that in the coming weeks when we start our consultation on community safety. And finally, Your Worship, thank you very much. I'll just finish on this note. In my opinion, this is the worst annual plan that we could have possibly delivered. We had an opportunity to deliver around 6.5%, and it's an opportunity that we threw away. And I would just ask some of these people around this table to remember what they were elected on and some of the promises they gave either groups that they represented or during public meetings. 9%, close to 9% rates rise is not what I stood for. I will not be supporting this motion, I'm sorry, Your Worship. I wish I could have. I could have been a bit flexible and gone past my 5% threshold, but I'm sorry, I will not support this. This, in my opinion, is the worst budget that came out of the Chadwick-Donaldson reign, and like their toxic legacy, it deserves to be in the bin. I won't be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Brien. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I do just need to correct for the record. We do not take from the poor and give to the rich. There is quite an evenly balanced distribution of the rates, and actually those that do have the higher capital value do have to pay more in terms of percentage in the rates. So, but we do appreciate your comments, and we appreciate all views and respect all views at this table. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome back. I have a great deal of sympathy for Councillor Patterson, Councillor O'Brien, Steve Gardner, Chanel's well-made arguments. I had an unfortunate experience last week of being confronted by a couple of people who said to me that they wouldn't be voting for me next time because they too were disappointed with an 8.8% pay rise. I tried to explain to them that running a city was complex, that there's a lot going on. I tried to explain what Steve Gardner rightly noted, that the cost of delivery has gone up for running a council. Their patience was limited, and the bottom line was they said that 8.8% was a criminal, Nevertheless, I will be supporting this. And here's why. One of the reasons I ran for council was I was unhappy with how the previous council went about making decisions. I formed the impression that a lot of the real decision making happened behind the scenes and council had become a rubber stamping affair. That's not what happened this time around on our watch. What happened on our watch is that we knew times were tough this year, and we went out to the community with a very frugal annual plan. We went out with as low an increase as we dared. And we got an awful lot of pushback from the community. This is what 2,100 submissions look like. 2,100 people said to us, we agree with you, rates should be lower, but we'd like the council to continue funding Citizens Advice Bureau. We'd like our city centre to be beautiful because this is a tourist town. This is who we are as a city. This is our identity as a city. We want to come back from the tough times of COVID. And the way to do that for a tourist town is to present itself in the best way that it possibly can. Councillor Patterson, I know you took issue with the bark matter to do with the city beautification, and that would have accounted for, was it half $500,000 worth of savings that we could have mustered at that point? The problem was that we had pulled that item to bits when it should never have been pulled to bits. What we would have been pulling to bits is the team of people that I passed on the way to council this morning who were beautifying the roundabout on the corner of Ranulph and Arawa Street. And I called out to them and said, great job, because they're working hard to beautify our city so that we can get back on the train. What can we do? Can we borrow $1.2 million and reduce rates by 1%? No, we can't do that, because I think the local government would prevent us from borrowing to reduce costs. Our opportunity for reducing the rates rise is past now. That's the whole process that we've been through. That's what we thoroughly debated, issue by issue, each and every process. And having gone through that debate, the standing orders make it very difficult to overturn previous decisions. It requires a much higher threshold of councillors to do it. Really, that option is past us whether we like it or not. And if I can offer any consolation at all, the annual plan, it's only the beginning. We've got 2 more years left. We've learnt some things along the way. We had some very good news from Thomas that, and you rightly pointed up and you picked up on it in your question, and the question that you asked was exactly the question I was going to ask, which is to do with a change in rating distribution. So the rates rise for the poorer people in our community who own the lower value houses will only be getting an 8.5 to 8.6% increase in rates. So that's a little bit better than 8.8. It's a step in the right direction. I think the process that we've followed is impeccable. It's been right and proper. And there's no way that we can begin to unpick it at this time. And so I'll be supporting the annual plan in its present form.
Much, Councillor Lee. Any other discussion? Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Lee, for your comments, and thank you to Councillor Patterson and O'Brien for yours as well. It's always really enlightening to hear the different views around the table. And to start off, I would say that my views are more in line with Councillor Lee's comments before. I think we can't forget that when we were deliberating the annual plan and we were making decisions on what services and proposals to retain, that each and every one of us around this table voted to retain some services. And I think that was because we heard from the community a near record turnout of 2,090 submissions from our community on how important these services, these programs are to the lifeblood of our city. Things, as Councillor Lee mentioned, like the city beautification, that created a vibrancy within our city. Businesses, I talked to so many businesses, community members that all supported, and visitors as well, that all said that Rotorua had beautiful gardens, and that was something that really took us ahead compared to other cities. Things like the community funding, where those community programs, those community organisations, again, a lifeblood in the community. Things like the waste education program, where we have a responsibility to help educate our community on how to reduce waste, why we are reducing waste, and again, it's not just a program that goes into our schools, it's a program that is city-wide. There are so many programs, and we heard so many comments and feedback from the submissions, and a range of views as well, but from many of the submitters that spoke at the hearings, and we heard again from a range, there were young to old, all from different backgrounds, but I want to specifically focus on a couple submitters that spoke, young professionals that live in Rotorua, and they chose Rotorua because of our lifestyle, because of what Rotorua provides to them. And they, again, with many other businesses I spoke to, said that if these services were taken away, that is what would make them want to move to other places. By retaining these services and these programs, we are creating a community that will be thriving and vibrant. And I think whether or not this was the intended consequence, but by going out into the community with the draft annual plan, with those proposed cuts, has made our community more informed about the services that council provides and the situation that we are in. And throughout this whole process, I'm sure all of us, I know all of us, have taken into consideration the affordability and the current economic outlook for our community and for our country. But we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We cannot, if we do not pay for it now, we will have to pay for it in the future. That's just how it goes. And there have been successive councils over the last few decades who have done exactly that. They've kicked the can down the road, and now we are having to pay for it. And I, for one, do not want our future generations, our future community, our future councils to have to deal with the same situation that we are in right now. Why don't we fund it right, we get it right this time, so that we can reduce the impact that it's going to have on our future generations. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wei. Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you, Chair. Just like to start by going back to the journey when we were all elected. This is a very new council. We have 7 new councillors, and we were elected on a platform effectively of a desire for change. There was obviously a clear need for change when we have new councillors elected who stood on that platform. We want to look at the spending that council had been doing in the past triennium or the last 9 years. And so as a new council, the first thing that we did was to look at what our role was, to look at the legislation, to look at those economic factors, and the things that Councillor Patterson has talked about. They're not new. We knew about those back in October. We set about stopping the spend, and we did, because we wanted to consider what spending we saw as a new priority was what we wanted for our new direction. We also knew that with the finance reports that were being presented, that we were going to come out at the end of this financial year with an unbalanced budget. We had reports from Thomas during that time where things weren't looking too good. We were going to have a big deficit. What would that have done? It would have meant that going into this next financial year, this annual plan year, we would have started off on the back foot. And we've already said that borrowing for OPEX was a no-no. We weren't going to go there. So we have been stopping the spend. We've been through this period looking at a proactive way in which, procurement is done, expenses are signed off. We've held staff vacancies. We've asked our staff to do more for less. Everyone is working as hard as they can. And we've made excellent progress, because what you're going to see in the next report coming up is that we're going to end the financial year pretty much back in balance. And that's a testament to the staff and the work that they've done in terms of just trying to address that spending imbalance. And then as part of that spending, we as ourselves as councillors, before Christmas, we were given some folders, probably not quite as big as that stack, but we were given all of the financial information for all of the departments of council. And the summer reading was, go away, have a really good look at what council does. We came back in the new year and we had a number of sessions where we decided as a council what were our priorities and we wanted our spending to be delivered. And on that basis, we went out with, and I'm going to use the word controversial, consultation document. Maybe not controversial, but maybe you could say it's open for discussion, it's open for debate. But we went out with a consultation document that said to the public, we have looked into every corner of spending of this council, and we want to know if you as the public value these services, because if not, if you want us to cut everything, we will keep your rates low, if that's what you want. We heard very clearly from the public that they didn't want that. We were transparent about the things that we could have taken off the table, the things that we could have stopped delivering for this community.
And Councillor Patterson, whilst you focus just on the economic wellbeing for this community, remembering there are other wellbeings that we need to focus on as well. There's the cultural wellbeing, there's the social wellbeing, and the environment wellbeing, and that's what we've done with this very well-rounded annual plan document. As the chair of the meetings where we discussed the annual plan, we all participated in that debate. We had a robust discussion, there were amendments, and there was voting on every single item. And I can look back on the list of items, and there is not one councillor that voted consistently no. And I had said before the meeting, every item that gets voted back in is only going to make the rates go up. So no one in good conscience can sit around this table and say, I did not have a part in where we landed with the rates rise and the figure that we're going to go out to today. The balance that we have had to do as councillors when we made those decisions was to weigh up the economic factors, but also what did the community want us to deliver? No, they wanted to have a vibrant community. They wanted to drive down and see beautiful gardens. They wanted to have education for the museum and waste minimisation. They wanted us to fund our Citizens Advice Bureau. So I think at the end of the day, we've made the right decision for the community. And as I said at the end of the last meeting, it was the collective decision of all of us. It was all of us that voted on those decisions. It was the combined judgment of all of us that made that collective decision where we landed on this final annual plan. So I think that we probably just need to step up, own the decisions that we've made, and agree that this is the right annual plan for this period of where we've landed in time. I will support the annual plan. As I say, I think it's democracy. We as a whole have voted on a number of proposals. The aggregate or the average of all of those proposals has come to where we've landed with this annual plan, and so I would support it. And I certainly do not accept that this was a wasted opportunity, as Councillor O'Brien has said. We've had that robust discussion, we've had that robust debate. Everyone had the opportunity to raise issues. If you felt that some issue wasn't raised, Councillor O'Brien, then that's on you. The rest of us, I think, in good conscience can say we've made the right decision for the community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kaifong. Just checking if there are any further discussions before we wrap this up. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship, and look, nice to see you back. I didn't have a big speech planned. In fact, I thought this would be fairly simple, but I really respect everyone sitting at the table that's spoken so far this morning because they've all raised relevant points. So thank you, councillors. I think the city is better for having you around the table. I think for me, it's simple maths. The petition is called for an 8% or lower. So if we have a look at 8% on the lower CV, capital value, according to the document that Thomas put up earlier. If the rates for the lower CV went up by 8% versus 8.5, which is what is proposed in this annual plan, the difference is $15. If for the median capital value, the difference is $24. In taking on board what Councillor Lee, Councillor Wang and Councillor Kaifong have talked about, we have listened to the community, and the community clearly wanted us to bring back some of the stuff that we were proposing to cut. I heard them loud and clear. Without good conscience, I just couldn't do and bring those cuts. So for $15 or $24, I think what we've done in this annual plan process is admirable. It's well consulted, well debated. I'm happy to support the motion as is. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Barker.
I too did not have a speech planned at all, but I wanted to acknowledge the views around the table because it has been a really difficult process, but it has been a very transparent one, as Councillor Lee has said. And so the community has had their chances to have an input, and they really have, and that helped to guide the decision making that happened around our table. I will acknowledge the passion and the care that the councillors have taken to express the views of some of the members of the public that have signed the petition. I appreciate their sentiment and the difficulties that people are facing, because these are unprecedented times. And as a council, we are also experiencing those times, and the inflationary impact that is sitting around 7% on average is actually more for the council as a business, and it is for some of the other businesses in our community as well. They're actually facing higher inflationary pressures, and so these are reflected in our balance sheet and the way we have to operate a business. And so this is part of the reason why we're sitting where we are. I think that as we go forward and plan for the long-term plan, we know a lot more as councillors, and we can have more of a say in the long-term outlook for our district. Also, I notice in the remits that are coming up to go to local government New Zealand, there is a remit that will actually ask the government to consider changing the threshold for those that need rates rebates, so that a higher level of people, the rates will be able to get rates remissions that will go to some way to help the people that are really struggling at these lower CVs and lower incomes. So that could be another opportunity to address some of the difficulties that the community is facing. So although this is difficult and it's not comfortable, I will be supporting this annual plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barker. Just checking if anyone on Zoom wants to make a comment before I sum us up. Carl, all good? Thank you very much. Look, I want to first of all acknowledge the passionate discussion that's occurred today, and also, of course, in the deliberations. We appreciate that this is a difficult decision, and we appreciate the challenges that our community is facing. And I want to express our gratitude to everyone who did make a submission and provide feedback. As you can see, over 2,000 submissions. You know, in the previous one, there was barely just over a handful, really, of submissions. So you can see just how much this annual plan meant. But you can also see, and the term is correct, it was controversial, because this council, for the first time, went out line by line and said, actually, these are all the areas that we could cut spending, that we could. Not that we wanted to, but that if we needed to, we could. Now, it was very clear from the community across many of those proposals that they wanted to keep them in. So again, this council was faced with a difficult decision, that we did want to reduce the spending, we did want to provide affordable rates, but we also wanted to ensure that the community was seeing us deliver on what's important to them. So we have worked hard in this annual plan to balance the investment in not only the essential services, but also what's important to our community. And there have still been significant stops in spending where we could. Do want to note, though, that much of our spending is on ensuring safe and reliable infrastructure. A lot of the discussion in the community and around this table has been on what we're stopping, but we haven't acknowledged that the things that we will spend money on is ensuring that our infrastructure, our roads, our wastewater treatment plants and sewage systems, our parks and reserves will continue to be maintained and ensure adequacy of service for our community. And I want to acknowledge that that also reflects a commitment to protecting our environment, because we have seen in other communities what happens when we do not invest in critical infrastructure, and our environment and our community wellbeing is impacted quite significantly on that. I do want to also acknowledge that within the annual plan, this council also asked for $1 million more of efficiency savings. We will have $1.5 million of efficiency savings that we've tasked our staff with to carry on as part of this as well. We're also committing to further reviews of council operations in that pursuit of greater efficiencies to ensure that our community is getting the best value for their rates. So this is only the first start. What's quite unfortunate for this new council is it's an annual plan where we're having to tweak in a short time frame what was the plan of a previous council in their long-term plan. So it was difficult. It wasn't a discussion of what do we want to do, what do we want to see delivered. It was instead a discussion of what can we cut from this plan that's already in front of us. So you have seen in this plan that there is going to have to be a rates increase. But I want to acknowledge that a lot of that is on the council infrastructure that's necessary, but also council services that ensure that our community is being adequately supported by this council too. So I want to thank councillors, I want to thank staff, and most of all, we want to thank our community and our public for providing their views to ensure that we can deliver a better Rotorua for all. Because without that, you would have seen some of those services that are important to the community removed. So although it has been a tough decision, we are grateful that we've landed in a spot that we believe will be the best outcome for the community of Rotorua in total. I do also want to acknowledge some of the many relevant points that have been raised in terms of cost of living, whether that's food, petrol, housing, and these are all unfortunately matters that council has very limited ability to change. Of all the tax and rates that our community pay, 90% of that comes from central government policies. So for those who are still frustrated at what's going on in our community, there is another opportunity for you at the end of the year to have your views heard too. But in the meantime, this council will continue to do all that we can to make sure that this is a better place for us. So we have had great discussion that's been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. I put that to the vote, that Council adopts the Annual Plan 2023-2024 and notes the plan delivers on decisions made by Council following consultation and decision making. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against? That is carried. Thank you very much. Yes, yeah. Those against will be noted.
I just want to say, if I did that here for the management, I have to shoot off again, but so I appreciate all the debate and the level. And I think we'll just move on now and see what else we can do to improve the situation.
Ngā mihi nui kia koe hoki, Councillor Waru. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We now move on to our next item, setting the council rates for the year 1st of July. May I please have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Moved by Councillor Barker, seconded by Councillor Brown. All those in favour to receive the report, say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Over to you again, Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So following on from the previous decision, these two items do work concurrently. We now ask you to set the rates so that we can go forward and strike the rates in our systems and work towards issuing the next year's rates notices.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the report? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Just the discount for early payment is 2%. Is that, how do we land on that given current CPI? Is it something that we should think about?
That's been a percentage that we've used historically. It's sort of what the average interest rate was that we were earning on funds held on on term deposit as such. It could be reviewed at the next LTP as to whether the percentage could go up or down.
Thank you. Any further questions? There appear to be none. So I will read out the motions. This is mostly procedural after adopting the annual plan. And may I please ask for a mover and a seconder that Council, in accordance with Section 23 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002, set the rates as set out below, in accordance with Section 24 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002, set the dates by which the rates must be paid as set out below, and in accordance with Sections 57 and 58 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002, set the penalties that may be added to unpaid rates as set out below, and also set the discount for early payment at 2%. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Kai Fong, seconded by Councillor Wang. All those in favour. Sorry, Councillor Waru, do you have a question? Thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Would you like your vote against report? Thank you. And that is carried. So that concludes our annual plan adoption and also the setting of the rates. Thank you once again. I know this has been quite the process. We do also acknowledge the public who are here and present, and also any people who may be live streaming for this decision. So we now move into the rest of our council agenda. We're starting...
Sorry. I just want to put my apologies in. I have to leave now, so my apologies for leaving you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waru. We've noted that, and thank you for joining while you could. So we're on page 41 of our agenda. I ask for a mover and a seconder to receive this report, financial performance for the 11 months ended 31st of May 2023. Moved by Councillor Kai Fong, seconded by Councillor Barker. All those in favour to receive the report, please say aye. And we'll hand over to Thomas and David to overview the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to change things up slightly. So during the year, I have presented on a monthly basis with regards to our financial performance, talked to the challenges that we've faced, and in particular around trying to balance the books. As the Deputy Mayor indicated earlier, that we have flipped from an operational deficit to now a very small operational surplus, but it is very pleasing to see the actions providing a positive result. And so because it is now more of a positive, I would like my colleague here, David, to present, if that's okay. Go.
Good morning, Your Worship and Councillors. Look, I'll take the report largely as read, but there are a couple of things I would like to point out in the presentation. We've dwelt on the operating environment that we're living in here in Council, both in terms of the impact of emergency housing, Plan Change 9 and the weather events, and what we've been doing and as a response in terms of cancelling or deferring expenditure, deferral of recruitment and increasing revenue targets, and that's come through in fruition through the month of May. So the task of identifying cost savings is a continuous task, and a number of opportunities that we have taken earlier in the year have come into effect through May, and we've seen that come through in the financial numbers for May in that report. Just as an update on the income side, we are showing a below budget income, largely due to the capital subsidies, and just highlighting again that number for capital subsidies being behind budget is cash neutral. We're not receiving that money because we haven't spent it in CapEx. So from a cash perspective, that is cash neutral. Operating expenditure remains above where we had set the budget due to those a number of the reasons illustrated in that previous slide, but we are in a position where our revenue is above where we have overspent in cost. Our capital expenditure will remain underspent at year end. So at the moment we are about 40 million underspent compared to what we had set in the budget. A big driver of that is the museum project, which has been delayed through community consultation, and just issues with contractors and cost supply getting things over the line that way. Highlighting the the breakdown of the high level deficit. As I mentioned earlier, we are showing lower capital subsidies for projects that we have not advanced to a level to qualify for a capital subsidy. That's money that we have not received in capital revenue. We're also tracking a little lower in development contributions as a little slower building activity. We're not receiving as much developer revenue as we had budgeted for. However, that is offset partially by a small operational surplus, and we aim to continue that through for the end of the financial year. Just to recap on this journey, so back in November we did highlight to Council that based on where we were trending as an organisation, we were looking at a operation deficit of about 5.6 million. We agreed with Council that we would continue to look for opportunities to reduce council expenditure and bring our position back within the envelope that was approved within the annual plan. And through the events of January, March, and now May, we are seeing those decisions come into effect. We are no longer foreseeing that operational deficit, and we are envisaging a year-end financial target within the envelope that was agreed through the annual plan process. Lastly, just highlighting areas where we are spending our capital expenditure. Again, a little behind budget in areas related to the museum, related to particularly in sewerage with the Tarawera scheme, and things things being pushed through into the 2024 year. But we are targeting as much of the financial spend in the capital delivery as we can get through in the month of June. Is there any questions on that report or any of the information in the presentation?
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. David, thanks for the report, mate. Can you just tell me what CapEx falls under community leadership and community wellbeing? I think the others are fairly straightforward, but it's on your last slide.
So items such as the aquatic centre would fall into their internal IT infrastructure, and those sorts of elements also fall into that sort of category. Yep, it's quite a wide range.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your report, gents. Page 43, under income, second paragraph from the bottom, it states, Council also received 899,000 ticket sales for the NRL All-Stars game in March. But then you look on further and there doesn't seem to be any expenditure associated with that. All we're talking about is the revenue. Where's the expenditure?
It's included in all the other line items. So the result that you have in front of you is reflective of the net small surplus that event ran, and that is included in the financial result. We've just highlighted the revenue line. We haven't highlighted in the report the expenses. The expenses for running that event are included in the financials.
So is that 899 profit?
No,
that's just the income.
As that was presented to you at the last committee meeting, that event made a small $7,000 surplus.
That's what I was questioning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown? Oh, sorry, no, we've had Councillor Brown. Any further questions? There appear to be none. I would like to acknowledge just how significant that graph was, the year-end operating expenses, I think I can read from here. That is hugely significant to go from a deficit of $5.6 million and now be forecast to deliver that on budget now. So we're very grateful to the staff for the hard work that they've put in. It was quite clear from this council coming in, and I know Councillor Kai Fong's acknowledged it in our previous annual plan discussions, but there was a clear message from this council that we wanted to not only deliver on budget, but we wanted to be able to find savings and efficiencies. So we appreciate that this would not have come as an easy task, but we do want to acknowledge the hard work that's gone into ensuring that we have a deficit, ensuring that we have a balanced budget, which ultimately ensures that we are being financially prudent for the community that we serve. So thank you very much to the work from the staff on that. Thank you. So that was, we do not need any further mover or seconder for that. Thank you very much, guys. We will now move to our next agenda item. We are on page 47 of our agenda, and this is the appointment of chair to the Infrastructure and Environment Committee. I ask for a mover and a seconder to receive this report. Moved by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Lee. All those in favour to receive the report, please say aye. And I'd now like to invite DC Una to provide a brief overview for this report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, councillors, I'd just like to cast your minds back to December and a discussion around mayoral powers. So under the mayoral powers, the mayor can set up and create the committee structure, and along with that can make appointments to chair and deputy chair roles. And you'll recall that was all undertaken back in December. Since that time, there's been an ongoing program of training, and particularly around the role of a chair within the operations of council, and that has included in-depth looks and training around the standing orders. So since then, following a review, the Mayor has now decided to make the appointment of a chair to the Infrastructure and Environment Committee, and has in the paper recommended that that be Councillor Barker. To the Infrastructure and Environment Committee, which the Mayor currently chairs. So this paper is a reflection of those mayoral powers and a reflection of the review and the training that has since been undertaken. So happy to take any questions or to hand over to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, and perhaps just a short statement from myself as well. I want to acknowledge and thank Councillor Barker for chairing during the time that I was away, and I also want to acknowledge, of course, our Deputy Councillor Wang as well for the support and the support from the wider councillors. It's great that we're able to make this change so soon. At the end of last year, when we created these new committees and we made the appointments of the chairs and the deputy chairs, we also acknowledged that this would only be for an interim period. So I am pleased that we've been able to provide that support and that training, and that we are able to appoint Councillor Karen Barker to take over the chairperson role, which you're very capable of, and we look forward to seeing your leadership in this infrastructure and environment space, which we know you're very passionate about, and we also know that fortunately you have a very passionate Deputy Councillor Wang, who also has had quite some time on this council advocating for infrastructure and environment, not only issues but also solutions. So were there any questions on this? Look, there appear to be none. This is quite straightforward. I'd like to move this. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor O'Brien. We put that to the vote, that Council resolves to appoint Councillor Barker as Chair of the Infrastructure and Environment Committee pursuant to Section 41A(3)(4) and clauses 26 and 31 of Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act 2002. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That is carried. Congratulations, Councillor Barker. We now move to our remits of the Local Government New Zealand 2023 Annual General Meeting. May I please have a mover and a seconder to receive this report? Moved by Councillor Barker, seconded by Councillor Wang. All those in favour to receive it, please say aye. Thank you. And I'd also like to ask Una to once again overview this report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, councillors, I'll take this report largely as read. What you've got in front of you here are a number of proposals that come forward from various councils ahead of the Local Government New Zealand conference. The process is that the proposals, or remits as they like to be called, are circulated throughout the councils so that you are aware of what is being discussed at the AGM. Bringing them to this meeting and circulating them to you ahead of time provides the opportunity for you as councillors to be aware of what those remits are, and also to show your support to the Mayor, who will be representing the Council at the AGM, in order that she has an appreciation and an understanding of your support or not of the remits that are on the table. So happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? I did have one question that was raised with me just on what the process is to submit a remit if this council wishes to do so in future.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the process there is that, and I might just need to be corrected if I get my numbers wrong, but a council may put together a proposal. They then need to circulate that proposal around other councils. In order for it to become on the LGNZ list of remits, the original proposal needs to be supported by 3 or 4 separate councils. Don't quote me on that exact number, I'm just from recall that one. But it does require a number of councils to support that in order for it to become on the AGM as a sort of a bona fide remit.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? There appears to be none. That one's pretty straightforward. I won't read out Oh, no, I will read them. I ask for a mover and a seconder for the motions that Council notes the following remits are proposed: allocation of risk and liability in the building sector, rates rebate, roading transport maintenance funding, local election accessibility, ability for co-chairs at formal meetings, parking infringement penalties, rural and regional transport, establishing resolution service, earthquake-prone buildings, KiwiSaver contributions for elected members, audit New Zealand fees, and point 3, that Council support. I propose that Council support the proposed remits at the Local Government New Zealand 2023 Annual General Meeting on 26th of July. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Brown. Just checking, was there any discussion on the remits? Yes, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Una, for your presentation. Your Worship, I'm not happy with 2 of the remits. Number 5, proposed by Northland Regional Council regarding co-chairs, and the other one being remit item 10 regarding KiwiSaver contributions proposed by Hamilton City. If I can take number 5 first. On 2 points. One, I believe it's co-governance by stealth. And second, some of the arguments used, in the background, I believe that I find it just fluff, to be truthfully honest with you. If they were that concerned about diversity and respecting mana whenua, why not hand over one of the chairmanships itself? There's chairs for very good reasons around decisions and why these need to be done. I think the whole remit is a nonsense myself. And number 10, the KiwiSaver one, one of the arguments is that we seem to be short of people applying, or that they believe that this may be a factor in people not standing for council. Could anyone tell me, are there any full councils around who did not require election because they just had enough nominees for the actual seats vacant? I can't think of any myself, and I'm sure we would have heard of one. The arguments are nonsense, so sorry, I can't support either item 5 or item 10. Thank you. But I'm happy with the others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Brien. Perhaps as the mover to open this up for discussion, and correct me if this is a okay process, please, Una. As the mover, and if the second is okay, we could put it as 2 options so that we support all of the items, and then that we do not support item 5. So, sorry, staff, maybe if you add an extra line, that we do not support items 5 and 10. So that's what I propose. I'd like to get some discussion around the table if there are any alternative views before putting that formally. Yes, Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate your comments, Councillor O'Brien. Just on the KiwiSaver contributions for elected members, having been a part of the Young Elected Members Committee for LGNZ, who supported the other remit on establishing the resolution service. However, we have had conversations around KiwiSaver contributions and how, as particularly younger people entering this local government world, not having that contribution may not necessarily stop them from standing, but it definitely does put them at an advantage compared to, I would say, other industries and other careers, I should say. But if it was to be taken as with 5 and 10 separately, then I will not be supporting the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wang. Any other discussion on taking them separately or in general on any of these remits? It does appear that we have a majority to take them separately. So any further comments on the remits or on the changes? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to thank Councillor O'Brien for bringing that number 5 to our attention, and for the reasons that he stated, I would support his position on that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, Councillor O'Brien, I agree with the KiwiSaver thing. I mean, I didn't stand for money. No, I stood because I wanted to make a difference for our community, and the fact that we actually ended up getting more than what I expected anyway, this kind of seems just silly. So no, I won't be supporting that particular remit, but I will be supporting the motion of getting rid of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? There appear to be none. I'm quite comfortable to take the direction of majority of council on how we vote at the AGM. I am there to represent the Rotorua Lakes Council, not necessarily my own personal view. So thank you very much, Councillor O'Brien, for raising the concerns for those particular remits. So we do have the 2 items in front of us. I'll read out just that new addition of point 3, that council support 1 to 4 and 6 to 9 and 11 of the proposed remits at the Local Government New Zealand 2023 AGM on 26th of July, and that council do not support remits 5 and 10. That is correct. That has been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brown. I will put that to the vote. Actually, sorry. Would you guys prefer that I put that all together, or item 3 and then item 4? It's all together, eh? Okay. 3 and 4. Yes. Will that be okay, Councillor Wayne? Because then you still get the supporting the ones you do like. Okay, I've read those out. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? And we note your comments, Councillor Wang. Thank you very much. That is carried. We now move on to the next agenda item. Adoption of Council's annual report for the year ended 30th of June. I ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report. Moved by Councillor Baka, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong, and we invite Thomas Colley to overview this agenda item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was hoping that today would be the end of a arduous journey with Audit New Zealand in adopting the annual report, but unfortunately 1.5 days ago we received notification from them that information we provided to them about 4 months ago needed to be changed. They hadn't signalled this at this point, and so we, as a result of not being able to turn that request around, they're not in a position to issue their audit opinion until we make those changes. The changes themselves relate to, as I said, information that we provided over 4 months ago, and the staff that put that information together unfortunately no longer work for us. They left for other opportunities. They both left town 3 months ago, and so we have struggled to turn that around. The change itself was redoing the consolidated accounts, so the council parent entity are fine. But the consolidation, we needed to redo some elimination transactions, which audit weren't particularly happy with. It is off the back of, as I said, an arduous journey that has probably broken the spirit of both teams. On one hand, Audit New Zealand has struggled with staff. They've had to bring staff in from overseas, and one of the staff members that came in, one of the very first questions they asked us was why our general ledger was GST exclusive and not inclusive, which our team were quite surprised with. And on the other hand, we've struggled as well with regards to having to do all our asset revals because of the environment that we're in, staffing changes and so forth. And so the combination of the two we'd hoped had come to a head today, but with regards to that very last query, surprise query from audit on information, as I said, we have provided to them 4 months ago, we're not in a position to adopt.
Thank you very much. So just because of that update, we won't be putting point 2, 3 and 4. So we'll still receive the report. Thank you for the update. But we will have to lay this item on the table until the next possible meeting. And we do acknowledge, obviously, the frustrations that this has been a long, drawn-out process. However, many of the factors have been outside of our control. So I still will ask if there's any questions for Thomas on this item. Nope, there appear to be none. Thank you. That will lay on the table until the next meeting, and there's no further action required on there. We do have 2 other items in the public, and then just the confirmation of confidential minutes. Would elected members like to continue or take a short break now? Continue? Okay then, we'll continue on. So we do expect that most of these will be taken as read. So we're on page 56. I ask for a mover and seconder to receive the report, District Leadership and Democracy Progress be received. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. All those in favour to receive the report, please say aye. Against, carried, and like to invite DCE Una to overview her report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, councillors, this is the first time that my group come to the council meeting as part of our new progress reporting through to the committees. You've had 2 rounds already in I&E and the C&DD committee. So, here's my first opportunity in front of you today with my group. I'm going to take the report as read, but I just want to draw your attention to page 56 and quite a colourful looking table that is on that page. One of the components of the long-term plan is the council sets a number of performance measures, and these are community performance measures. My group, the corporate planning area, are I suppose the guardians of those performance measures, in which we oversee all other areas of council in terms of are they collecting and measuring their various measures, and then we collate that and report that back through to council. Our objective is to, at least 4 times a year, bring those measures back to you, and it all depends on the timing of some of the cyclical work of the areas in terms of reporting. What you will also receive at the end of each financial year is a consolidated summary of all of those measures, because the performance measures are a major component of the annual report that we've just discussed about. So these measures here are for the current financial year of information that we have year to date. And going forward, once we sort of round off this current financial year, the team will be working on collating all of the measures as a final result for the year-end current year that we're talking about. So happy to take any questions. And I suppose the last thing there is just to signal that now, in having adopted the annual plan, a large component of my team's area will be turning their attention to long-term plan development. So we'll be walking that journey alongside you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Una. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Una, on page 57, this lovely, wonderful graph that you, or should I say, image that you talked about, the annual plan. How much did all of the annual plan consultation actually cost?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I'll have to come back to you with an exact cost. Most of the consultation is actually staff time, so it's the staff resources going out and supporting the events that we have. There's a nominal amount that we put aside for a bit of advertising, Facebook posting and the likes, but most of it is staff time.
Thank you.
Any further questions? This is from page 56 to 61.
I do have some more then. Thank you. On page 58, as of March, it says on page 58 in that table, as of March, 6.8% of working age population receiving job seeker benefit. Do we have any idea how many are receiving the unemployment and sickness benefit as well?
I don't think that's a measure that, well, it's not a measure that's currently measured, so perhaps our staff would not usually need to know, but is it a suggestion that you would like that to be included?
Yes, because that would then really give us a more accurate picture of how many people are in our community are receiving some sort of support.
Yeah. So let's take that feedback on board, and we'll see how we can implement that into how we're measuring performance.
Great, thank you. And one last question. On page 60, one thing that I thought would be helpful, given that we are live on YouTube right now, or live streaming, how many viewers engage with our YouTube? That would be great to know.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we do keep a record of that, and we can provide that figure to you. It does vary from meeting to meeting, and it does come down to what's on the agenda as well, but we can start tracking. We do track that and can provide it if that's what you wish.
Thank you.
And also it does show how many views on the YouTube videos afterwards as well, if councillors wish to see. Any further questions from anyone on this item? Councillor Pat O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Una, for your very helpful report. Could I just ask, I see there's a figure there about the percentage of consents processed within 20 working days. Sorry, I think it's towards the bottom of page 58 on our reports. Can I ask you, now I see that there's obviously some room for improvement there. Could I ask, do we also keep figures, or have we considered keeping figures on how many projects get referred, particularly I'm thinking in the, say, the 15 to 20 working day that get requests for more information? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Madam Chair. That's actually a question that I'll need to direct at JP Gaston, and he's not in attendance today, so I'll pass that one on to him and we'll come back to you with the answer for that.
You're welcome. And also, just to acknowledge that this is really an indication of the community performance measures as well, but we will have opportunities in future to delve into more detail on them. Any further questions? There appear to be none, so we'll move on to our next progress report. This is organisational enablement. I ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report. Moved by Councillor Lee, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour to receive the report, please say aye. And I'll re-invite Thomas Colley back to overview the report.
Good morning again, councillors. Happy to take it as read and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We are on page 61 to page 67. I'll give councillors a moment to pull it up. Were there any questions? Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, Thomas. Just a question on the days lost due to injuries. There's a big peak spike in June, July and August. Is there a reason that you can think of that why that happened?
Yes, at that time we had 2 staff members, both were tripping incidences. One ended up having to, because of the breaking wrists and so forth, had quite a lengthy extension away from work as a result. But those were as a result of 2 incidences of falling.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Worship. Thomas, the employee turnover percentages look healthy on the surface and certainly improved over time. Is that something that you could benchmark for us in future? And I don't know what benchmark you would use, but how do we measure success in that space?
Yeah, so Clint's reached out to a couple of other councils to get their information. We've got some information for the current month, but not the historical. We seem to be slightly better than some of our peer councils that we reached out to, but it has been hard because they haven't been holding that information. It's been hard to give a comparator for the same period as we have. But we seem to be similar or slightly better than some of our peers.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Kaifong.
Not really a question, Chair, but more of a comment. Thank you to both Una and to Thomas. I think from Una's perspective, we've done an awful lot of public consultation. We've written an awful lot of documents for the public in terms of both the annual plan, the future development strategy, the museum consultation, and then having to turn them all into documents and get your staff to turn those around in terms of the time frame. So I'd just like to acknowledge that. And also, Thomas, to your team, to acknowledge the implementation of the One Council and the smooth way that that was implemented. And I didn't seem to see, from my perspective anyway, that there were any issues with that. So compliments to you and your team around the implementation and rollout of that.
Thank you. Any comments? Look, there appear to be none. So thank you very much to Thomas. Thank you to Una. So the only other item is confidential minutes. As there is only minutes, may I suggest that we, unless there are any corrections or discussion required, we can just move them? Okay. We have a mover by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Patterson, that the confidential minutes of the council meeting held 31st of May 2023 be confirmed as true and correct record. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? That is carried. That concludes our meeting today. I'd like to now invite Councillor Karen Barker to close our meeting with a karakia.
Thank you, Worship. Kia whakatakaria te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia turuku whakataha ai, kia turuku whakataha ai, humie huie tā kie.
Thank you very much. Just before I declare the meeting closed, I do want to provide a special thank you to our Deputy Mayor, Sandra Kaifong, for her leadership, her direction and also her support in the time that I've been away and out of office. And thank you to the councillors as well. So that was much appreciated, especially during the deliberations of a very robust annual plan. So pleased to have confirmed that with you all today. Thank you very much for your discussion and thank you to Councillor Sandra Kaifong. Thank you. I declare the meeting closed.